This project was authorized in 2019 with an appropriation of $126,000. The consultant services contract was between the Commission and W.H. Smith Associates Incorporated, firm out of Green River. The original contract amount with W.H. Smith out of the appropriation was $125,700 with $124,689.98 expended, with a balance in the contract, or the balance to be reverted of $1,010.02. The city was sponsored by the City of Evanston to update a previous master plan conducted in 1997. This planning study was requested to be hydraulic model driven by Dean Barker, the city engineer, and indeed it was. The subcontractor on this was Black & Veatch out of Denver, Colorado. As I mentioned, this is a larger city in Wyoming, and with the hydraulic model that was created, a lot of times we need engineering support from firms that have the firepower to really conduct the hydraulic modeling. And Black & Veatch did a very good job as the sub-consultant here. The study also includes analysis of the system, summary of recommendations, conceptual level designs, cost estimates, and a capital improvement plan. The primary supply for Evanston, of course, is the Bear River. They're on Bear River drainage. So they have water rights out of the river. They also have supplementary rights out of the water stored in Sulphur Creek Reservoir with 12,500 acre feet reserved for the city. That reservoir was enlarged in 1988. The city operates 8 tanks with a capacity of 5.8 million gallons. Tanks supply separate zones and provide equalization, storage, and fire flow. During the modeling phase of the project, the system was found to be providing appropriate storage in all zones. Projections in the future did suggest upgrading in some of the zones that are where growth is occurring. The sponsor also operates booster stations. As you know, Evanston is kind of on the river, but has been growing into the hills on all sides and to the north. The sponsor owns 80 miles of distribution system. There was some into the evaluation. There are some cast iron pipes that are over 90 years old. And the evaluation recommendation included replacement of some of these older pipelines. In the memo on page 2, you'll see a list of the capital improvement plan developed in the study with priority 1 improvements and priority 2 improvements include transmission lines, connector lines, and storage expansion. You'll see in priority 1 that there's a 2020 recommended improvement. The city did not make any applications for level 3 this year, but of course they're at liberty to begin on either list of these improvements. There was a public presentation of the report on October 27th last year to the City Council at City Hall in Evanston. The final report and executive summaries are here in hardcover. They're also online with words. Our recommendation is that the Commission accepts the final report submittals and the closing of the consultant services contract with W.H. Smith Associates. Any questions on this study? I can try to entertain those.
Chair,
Commissioner Kaylee?
Kevin, I just have one question. Do you know what some of the water quality issues that they were having up there are by chance?
No.
Probably someplace.
Did you hear some? Did you hear of some?
Yeah, I just had heard that they had some issues up there that they addressed it.
There was nothing addressed in the report, but of course it's a surface water treatment plant there. So from this Bear River source and the Sulphur Creek source. So.
Okay. Appreciate it.
Any other questions or comments? Mr. Gephardt? Director Gephardt?
Yes, we need a motion.
Are we gonna put them all together or?
You certainly can, if you prefer to do that, we can go through all of them.
Yes, there is. If someone wishes to make a motion, there is a motion statement on the memo.
Yeah, these are specific statements, so.
Yeah, let's
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I move acceptance of the Evanston Water Master Plan Level 1 project report as being complete. And further, the Wyoming Water Development Commission makes the following findings relative to this project, that the commission recommend proceeding to the next level of project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
Second.
Mark Cox. Commissioner Ronquillo, second. Good motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, the next closeout memo is the GVID storage enlargement level 2 study. Jason Mead will present it, and I believe we have a Greg Lunds.
Greg Lunds and Melissa Chatwin. With Greg Lunds is with AECOM. He's the engineer that completed the study. And Melissa is representing the Grable Valley Irrigation District. Is she in?
She may have an unknown number.
I'm here.
Hi, Melissa. How are you?
Good, how are you?
All right. So, as I mentioned, AECOM completed this study for us.
Excuse me.
Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to note, I don't have page 2 of either of these on the e-document. I didn't have page 2, the last one, and I didn't have page 2 of this one. I'm just letting commission know. So I don't know if the other people that are online have the same issue, but just have to be missing my second page as far as I can tell. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I'll run through the closeout document here real quick, and then if we have any questions, Greg and Melissa can help me answer those. So in 2015, the Grable Valley Irrigation District approached our office looking for additional storage, in particular for late season supplemental irrigation. They currently irrigate, I think it's roughly 20,000 acres in their upper basin and around 50,000 acres in their lower basin. They have Upper Sunshine Reservoir, Lower Sunshine Reservoir, and Roach Gulch Reservoir, which was built in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they equate to about 145,000 acre feet of storage. So in 2015, we started a level 2 phase 1 in the Dam and Reservoir Division. The first thing we wanted to look at was, is there purpose and need for additional storage? Because obviously they had storage and they just built Roach Gulch. We did pretty extensive hydrologic modeling with StateMod. That's our hydrologic modeling platform. And it goes into water rights and diversions and return flows and conveyance efficiencies, anything and everything you can do to get an accurate depiction of what's happening in the watershed hydrologically. And what that showed was that there indeed was still existing shortages and there was available water to store under a present day storage right with an enlargement. And part of the reason for that was because of the modeling period when they built Roach Gulch only went to roughly the mid 90s. And then of course we brought it all the way up to 2017. So it was about a period of record of almost 50 years that we modeled And of course, the early 2000s were our big drought period. And then we also had some pretty high snowpack years. 2017 was one in particular. So what the modeling showed was we had about 23,000 acres of shortage still on average, and about 33,000 acre feet of available water that we could store on average.
Missing pages.
So when I say average over 47, 50 years, some years you might have zero shortage and zero available water, depending if it's dry year. And some years you might have a lot of shortage or a lot of available water. So it's just an average. So once we determined that there was need, we proceeded with looking at different reservoir alternatives, in particular enlargements of the existing storage sites and then some new sites. And what came out of that was that the Lower Sunshine Reservoir was the preferred alternative to move forward with. It was least environmentally damaging, considering we would have to eventually get a 404 permit to construct this. So at that time in 2017, we moved into a level 2 phase 2 study to get more in-depth information on Lower Sunshine in particular. And in the phase 2 study, most of you guys are familiar with this, but for some of the new commissioners, that's when we actually get boots on the ground a little bit more to do field work. It's a much more focused effort with wetland delineations and cultural resource surveys and paleo. And in particular on this site and most sites that we look at in phase 2 geotechnical investigation. So we're talking about spending more money once we get focused on a particular site that looks favorable. They looked at a number of different enlargement sizes and eventually settled on roughly 19,500 acre foot enlargement, which is about a 17-foot, little over 17 feet vertical enlargement. And that was decided upon based on the original design allowed for an enlargement about that size before you started getting into control buildings and other infrastructure that's out there, as well as just what could be supported by the current membership of GBID and what they thought they could sell to their members. And as they were going through some of the conceptual engineering, they determined that geotechnical conditions of the dam and the foundation were going to be very important to determine a real good cost estimate on this particular project. The additional or the other field work that I mentioned, wetlands, the environmental type stuff, no red flags came up that it would not be feasible to move forward. But we did feel like we need to do some additional geotech investigation. So in 2019, we did that and also did what's called a semi-quantitative risk assessment, where they actually looked at potential failure modes that could occur through the foundation. And they did come up with basically an incompatibility between the filter material below the dam and the actual core clay material below or inside the dam. And I won't get into the technical aspects of that, but that was a bit of a concern. And the seepage that they found and the way the joints sat basically required them to do a pretty extensive grouting program to alleviate those problems, in addition to some more filter material. And that drove the cost up from what they anticipated was around 45 million in the phase 1 study, all the way up to 100 million now in the phase 2 study. So kind of where the rubber meets the road on this is the economics. And economically, benefit to cost ratio, we're still right at that 1. The benefits equal the cost. If it's less than 1, obviously it costs more to build than it's worth. So we're still looking fairly good there, but the problem we run into is the grant loan. The district determined that their willingness to pay of their membership was about $20 per acre foot. And that would require about a 90 to 92% grant. And our criteria says we can grant all the way up to 100% in account 3, which is dams and reservoirs, but we can't exceed the public benefit of the project with the grant. And in this particular case, the public benefits came to, I think, 68 million or 69 million, which is about 70% of that 98 million total price tag. And with that, it would require about $71 per acre foot to pay for a loan over 50 years. So where we ended up is the district obviously feels like that's not economical, not feasible for them, and we agree with that. So at this time, they decided not to move forward with the project and wait until we can identify, or they can identify, some additional funding, potentially federal funding. There's some promising stuff that came out of the last congressional session. It's not in place yet, so we don't know all the details, but there's potential in the future. So at this point, the recommendation is to, accept the report the way it is and set the project aside and see if conditions become more favorable. And I believe that the district agrees with us on that. And they've got a letter that we've attached to this closeout memo. So we had a virtual presentation because of COVID on December 11th. That went well. The reports are online now. I just mentioned the WWDO recommendation, and then we have a recommendation for the commission's consideration. So with that, I would ask if there's any questions.
Do you have any questions or comments? We have a motion to
Mr. Chairman, I'll move to approve. The commission recommends, I move to accept the Gray Ball, the irrigation district storage and enlargement level 2 phase 2 project report as being complete. And further, the WWDC makes the following findings relative to this project. That the commission recommend discontinuing the project due to the lack of economic feasibility expressed by the sponsor until such time in the future that the sponsor can identify additional funding options that make the project economically feasible for the water user.
Second.
Ben Salmi, Dalton, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
I
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to thank Greg Lunds and Melissa Chatwin for their time today on the phone. Thank you.
Thank you. Lisa?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, the final closeout memo is the Middle Bighorn River Watershed Level 1 study, and Maple Jones will present that closeout.
Thank you, Brandon. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and members of the commission here and virtually. I am Mabel Jones, and I will present the closeout memo for the Middle Bighorn River Watershed Level 1 study. Jody Pring was the project manager on this, but I will be presenting the closeout memo today. So this project was sponsored by the South Bighorn Conservation District and the Washakie County Conservation District. The project area encompasses about 1.1 million acres in Bighorn, Hot Springs, Washakie, and Park counties. The watershed includes the primary stream system of the Middle Bighorn River, extending from its confluence with Gooseberry Creek, south of Worland, to near the town of Grable, where the confluence of where the Grable River enters the Bighorn River. The tributaries in the study area include Elk Creek, 15 Mile Creek, Gooseberry Creek, No Water Creek, and the East Fork of No Water Creek. So the watershed study was conducted to evaluate current watershed function, irrigation, diversion, conveyance systems, and upland livestock, wildlife, water management, and rehabilitation opportunities. Large-scale erosion and conveyance of sediment from drainages to the Bighorn River were also identified as major issues in the watershed study. About 20% of the watershed is in public ownership, about 75% is federally owned. 61,000 acres in the watershed are cropped and irrigated by sprinkler, flood, and gated pipe, and beets and barley are the primary crops in the watershed. 8 public meetings, numerous conference calls, and multiple site visits were conducted, and they were attended by landowners, stakeholders, community members, state, federal, and local agency partners. Key issues and opportunities in the watershed were identified and recommendations were developed, which included over 60 projects to include irrigation and drainage system improvements, livestock and upland watering developments, surface water storage opportunities, sediment management, riverbank stabilization project, and wetland development and enhancement, and also grazing management project. For the projects that are identified for those 60 projects, feasibility and benefits are evaluated, and then also conceptual designs are developed so that sponsors can move forward with getting funding efficiently for those projects. So the consultant for the project was Y2 Consultants. The original contract amount was $284,440. The final contract amount was $284,439.78 for a savings of 22 cents. So the balance remaining in the account. So the final report and a summary of projects are online, and we have hard copies in our office, and the sponsors have those as well. And the report was presented the end of October of 19 in the towns of Basin and Berlin at public meetings. So the office's recommendation is that based on the Bighorn River watershed study providing an analysis of watershed conditions and a number of projects are identified that will help with management and rehabilitation of the watershed. The office recommends supporting the funding of projects within this watershed on a case-by-case basis. And with that, if there's any questions,
Do
happy
you
to
have any
take those.
questions or comments from Abel?
Mr. Chairman, I do, maybe do you know if they're have plans to move forward with the level 2, or is there a certain entity that would sponsor that?
So the various conservation districts in the watershed could come forward and present or submit applications for small water projects, for those projects that are eligible for small water. Some of the sediment projects, rehabilitation of the sediment dams and reservoirs are pretty pricey, so they'll probably have to come forward with a number of partners for those types of projects. But a number of the projects would be eligible for small water.
Question, Commissioner Daly?
No.
Anybody else have any comments or questions?
Mr. Chairman, are any of the project proponents online or no? Okay.
So, in the corner there. Did you raise your hand? No, I'm here on the screen. Is it Jolin? Did you have a question, Commissioner Jolin? Okay. I see his hand move, that's why. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move acceptance of the Middle Bighorn Watershed Study Project report is being complete, and further the WWDC make the following findings relative to this project. That the commission recommend proceeding to the next level and project development upon the submittal of an appropriate funding application by the sponsor.
Have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Yankee, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you, Mabel.
All right, thank you.
Commissioner Gebhardt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda is item 7. These are the planning amendments. Mr. Chairman, we talked yesterday about creating some of these larger items as blocks, have a consent list. So I will share my screen under tab G as a spreadsheet. And I will share that briefly. And what this spreadsheet is, I know it's kind of hard to see on this. But this is just a brief summary of the amendments that are in this agenda item. And I do know that we will have some public involvement. So if Friday can start letting some of those people in. And as we start letting these people in, and I'll briefly describe what these amendments are. But just for the sake of the new commissioners and to remind the existing commissioners that not to be alarmed by these planning amendments. These are pretty standard, particularly when we start looking at these dams and reservoirs projects. The reason we keep seeing these amendments is the projects last a long time, and we don't really necessarily want to tie up all of the money until we know that we need to do it. So our preference is to just sign the contract with these consultants and professionals for a certain amount of time, typically 5 years. And then if it takes longer, then we continue on with these amendments rather than having a 10-year contract. So I just wanted to explain that this is not an unusual request of the commission. We'll see these quite frequently. So I just wanted to explain that. And Mr. Chairman, you will see that we've got 8 or 9 planning amendments. My recommendation would be to discuss all of these and then just vote on them as a block to approve all of them. I would probably suggest we pull out the LaPrelle Irrigation District project only because there are 2 options to that, and we can do a separate motion for that project. And I would also say that if anybody believes they have a conflict of interest and would like to pull one of these projects out to vote separately, we can certainly do that. Do we have any potential conflicts of interest on any of these projects?
Does anyone have any conflicts of interest with any of these projects? Good to go.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, so we'll go down the list on this, and if I'm made aware, if I think that we have a public participant, I'll try to include them. If not, maybe they can speak up when we get to that item if they want to say something. But the first planning amendment is for the Alkali Creek Reservoir Project, third-party NEPA contractor service. This is just a 2-year time extension with our third-party NEPA contractor. We're getting close to a 404 permit. We're still developing some compensatory mitigation planning and some adaptive management planning. So it's just a time extension to a current contract. The next item on the list is the Clear Creek Storage Level 2 Phase 2 study. This is Amendment 6. Again, this is a time extension to extend the contract to December 31st of 2022. And really this is just continuing to refine project details to help prepare the sponsor for and/or the water development to apply for additional funding for this project, and just continue the work that is going on. I'll pause there. Are there any questions on either of those first 2 projects?
I do have a question, Chairman, about the Clear Creek. Jason, this is what we looked at in Buffalo 2 years ago on the tour. And this is a project where there'll be a pipeline coming across to feed the reservoir. Is that correct?
Yes.
My question is to have a reference to actually being on the slide.
Any other comments or questions?
All right, Mr. Chairman, the next project is the Douglas Test Well Level 2 study. This is amendment number 2. This is a time extension amendment. And I do believe that we have potentially Ben Jordan and maybe John Harbarger wanting to make a comment. But really what's going on with this project is we've got a well site identified. It's really a finite well site. So working with the landowner to get access easements. And that's really what's going on, is just taking a little bit of time to get the access agreements. We're being patient with the landowner, and this is the site that I think we really want to drill. So just a 18-month time extension. I'd ask for any public comment if.
Ben Jordan is on.
All right. Ben or John, did you guys want to say anything?
Just want to say thank you for considering this time extension. We have been in regular communication with both the ranch owner and their attorney. And like a lot of ranches across Wyoming, they're looking at generational type changes and options for the ranch. And so kind of ranch legacy considerations that are entering into this. And that's a big part of what's taking so much time.
Have any comments or questions for Ben or John? Thank you for attending. Director Gebhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the next project, Pearl Irrigation District Rehab, we'll discuss that maybe at the end. We'll go through the rest of it and go on that block, and then we'll discuss the Pearl. So the next project then is the Levitt Reservoir Expansion Final Design Amendment 2. We discussed this project yesterday. This is adding $200,000. If you remember, we had seen some unobligated but appropriated funds. We're moving that into final design to replenish the discretionary tasks. Any further questions on the Levitt expansion?
Anyone have any questions or comments on the Levitt expansion? Director Gebhardt.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next project is the Levitt Reservoir Expansion Permitting Liaison. This is Amendment 1. We also discussed this yesterday as part of the same pool of money. We're adding $75,000 to our NEPA liaison contract to do some adaptive management and wetland mitigation analysis and hopefully reduction of mitigation. Any questions on that?
Mr. Chair? Just a quick question, Director. On all these where we have Stantec, is all going to be the name change as well as the time extension or budget adjustment? Because didn't Stantec, wasn't that Wank before or somebody else you told us yesterday?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Tommy Dalton, yes, that is correct, and I apologize for missing that. But yes, any of these amendments that involve Wank will have that name change component as well to Stantec.
Thank you.
Is that your question?
Yes, thank you for, I just want to make sure you add in the name changes are, and we approve it. Thank you.
Anyone have any other questions or comments? Director Gebhardt.
Mr. Chairman, the next project is the Little Snake Supplemental Storage Level 2 Study, Amendment Number 7. This is a time extension only project, or amendment. We discussed this project yesterday. This is kind of the rejuvenation of the West Fork Reservoir work, just extending the current contract time to allow us to start in on determine what the best path forward is and what we need for NEPA. And I do believe that we had some public participation on this. Do Bob or Don, do you guys want to speak?
Director Gephardt, this is Bob Davis, and if I need to answer any questions, I'd be more than willing at this time.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Bob Davis? Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Gebhardt.
All right, Mr. Chairman, the next project is the Noah River Storage Level 2 Study. This is Amendment 7. This is the study that the Alkali Reservoir developed out of. And so as Alkali started getting legs and working, some of the efforts of the consultant were to assist with preparing information for the permitting of Alkali. And that diverted some of their attention away from finishing up their analysis of Meadowlark Lake expansion. So we're asking for a time extension just to finish up that work on Meadowlark Lake.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Director Gebhardt? Director Gebhardt?
Mr. Chairman, the next project is the Silver Lake Dam Rehabilitation Level 2 study. This is Amendment 1. This is a 2-year time extension request. The district was able to secure, or even I believe they secured some additional funding for the project. So we are just asking for a time extension to use our funding to help them with some of the permitting and some of the ancillary work that and analysis needs to be done in coordination with the other funding source that they got. So the project is proceeding and we're just asking for a time extension for the consultant.
Any questions or comments for Director Gebhardt?
I do, Mr. Chairman. Brendan, where is that geographically, Silver Lake?
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Yankee, this is northeast of Pinedale.
Okay. Is that the one that's in the forest and in the wilderness area, and there's some considerations about equipment getting in and out? Or am I thinking of a different one?
It's in the Forest Service. I don't know if it's in a wilderness area. Is it? Andrew Lynch, our project manager, can help.
Chairman, I'm Andrew Lynch with the Dam Reservoir Division. This project I'm working on. Yes, it is in the wilderness area of the Ridge of Teton. If you go due east of Boulder, Wyoming, about 10,000 feet is where it's situated.
Highlight is
Does
southwest
that
of
pose
Pinedale.
problems for being in the wilderness as
Yeah.
far as getting equipment in, or how's all that working out?
So you have to go through an additional analysis, what they call a minimum requirements analysis. And because the dam preceded the wilderness, it was built in the 50s and the wilderness came in 1964. They built it with mechanical equipment, so they allowed us to go in there last fall with the excavator and the drill rig, and we did some geotechnical work. That's kind of unprecedented in the wilderness. We were able to get it done. It took 2 years to get it approved, but we did get it. So.
Any more questions or comments? Director Gebhardt?
Mr. Chairman, I appreciate the, let me pull that back up. I apologize.
The ones that we're gonna vote on as a block.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that is all of the planning amendments with the exception of
We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept all the planning amendments except for the LaCrell planning amendment. We move to approve those.
Second.
Second.
Who was it the second? I can't see the screen.
Second that.
Commissioner Choma, second.
There, Tillman second. We have a motion on the floor. All four say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The last project in this block was the one that we discussed yesterday, the LaPrelle Irrigation District Level 2 Phase 2 Study Amendment Number 3. As we discussed yesterday, we brought 2 options to you for consideration. We also discussed a recent phone call that the office had with the consultants and the concern for snowpack above it. My recommendation is to take the larger of the 2 options that are presented in the notebook. So my recommendation is to amend the current contract for amendment number 3 in the amount of $194,400. The other option, I believe, was for $134,400. But to give us the flexibility, our recommendation was to do the full amount.
Does anyone have any questions for Director Gebhardt?
Mr. Chairman, I just for clarification within the book, I'm looking at, so what page, just point me to the or if you could point us to the page on which this, the recommendation, that your recommendation is on.
So, Mr. Chairman, it is under tab G, and it is, kind of buried in probably 10 pages in, probably. I lumped all of these recommendations together, so it's kind of hard to see. If you follow the order of Alkali, Clear Creek, Douglas, and then Latrell is the next one under tab G.
And then which page of that?
18 pages in.
18 pages in, and then of course those are numbered, so it'd be like page 204. Is that what you're on there?
So I'm on page 1 of the memorandum.
Okay, page 1. Okay.
And then the underlying sentence at the bottom of the memorandum says, to summarize, the amendment includes project management plan has a budget increase of $194,400. The option without the project management plan has a budget increase of $134,400. Both of these options, they do include $80,500 for some geotechnical planning in preparation of a contract procurement document so that we can get the drillers on the ground as soon as we're ready. Thinking right now, depending on additional funding sources, that the drilling could occur late summer, August, excuse me, August timeframe. Both of these also include just under $27,000 for project management and technical support. And then this will also replenish in the tune of $27,000. It will replenish one of the tasks from a previous scope. We used part of the report money as we were working through the project. We diverted some of the report budget to assist in the work that we were doing at the time. And I think for the most part, this was probably the development of the hydraulic risk assessment, as well as help some assistance on securing some additional funding and applying for some additional funding. So the amendment does the geotechnical planning, project management, replenish the reporting so that we still have that intact when we get to that point, and then the $60,000 project management plan, basically our flexibility to react.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Director Gebhardt?
Bill, would you make that?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that we amend the consultant contract for the Latrell Irrigation District Rehabilitation Level 2 Phase 2 study to increase the total contract by $194,000.
Second.
$194,400.
Second by Salmi Dalton. We have a motion on the floor. All four say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Mr. Chairman, this is Mark. Just to make sure that that extra what $194,400. That's what we're.
Motion passed. Director Gebhardt.
All right, Mr. Chairman. The next item on the agenda, number 8, is a small water project program agreement amendment. This is a time extension agreement for a small water project. These aren't all that common, but this particular instance, this sponsor, we funded just a small portion of a larger project. So our small water grant went to a smaller portion of the overall project, but the sponsor was trying to secure additional funding. And they had some applications in and getting ready to ink the contract, I believe, about the time that COVID hit. And so that delayed the contract signing and then also the project ultimately. So this would be, this request is for a 1-year time extension to allow them to continue with this project. And this is for the South Flat Creek Fish Passage and Channel Restoration Project.
Do you have any questions for Richard Gephardt? You have a motion?
Chairman, I would move to allow the time extension for the project.
Second.
Commissioner Haley, second. All four, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Richard Gephardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda, item number 9, the 2021 level 1 and level 2 planning project contracts. Very discussion yesterday of the process that we go through for all these projects. This is the culmination of that. These are the planning projects that came out of the omnibus water bills. And so these have been vetted, and really what we're doing right now is just approving the contracts for these projects. I will share my screen and pull up the block of projects. And so, Mr. Chairman, I may make the recommendation that we look at each of these 3 blocks that are presented on the screen right now. And we can approve each of those. So for the level 1, account 1, under the new development, we've got the Hoback River Watershed Study. The consultant is Rio Verde Engineering. The contract amount is $276,162. And this is a watershed study. The next project under this block is the Lander Water Master Plan. HDR Engineering is the consultant. Contract amount is $207,600. Next project is the Nordic Ranches Water Master Plan. Forrester and Associates is the consultant. Contract amount $62,900. The next project is the Upton Water Master Plan. Bear Lodge Engineering and Surveying is the consultant. $152,483 contract amount. The next project is the Wheatland Water Master Plan. Civil Engineering Professionals Incorporated is the consultant. Total amount is $124,890. Mr. Chairman, the next item on this is the UW Water Research. We actually have its own agenda item, so we would remove that from this block. But I would suggest the approval of the planning contract.
Anybody have any questions for Richard Gephardt on these planning projects?
Mr. Chairman, which one would be removed from this block? Go one more time.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Cott, it would be the UW Water Research Program.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Okay, do we have a motion to approve all of the planning under level 1 with the exception of the UW Water Research Program?
Mr. Chairman, I so move that.
Second.
Lisa and Salmi Dalton, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Commissioner Director Gilbert.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next block would be the level 2, the suitability studies under account 1 development. The first project is the Bighorn Regional Transmission. Dow LLC is the consultant, and the contract amount is $145,700. The next project is the Byron Rural Water Supply. This is also Dow LLC. Contract amount is $126,440. The next project is the Gillette Water System Improvements. Morrison Merrily is the consultant. Contract amount is $149,048. And the final project in this block is the Little Snake River Valley Water Supply Phase 2. Stantec would be the consultant, and the contract amount is $162,300.
Any recommendation is to approve all?
That is correct, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
We have a motion to approve all of the level 2 account, new development feasibility studies.
Mr. Chairman, I would move we approve all the level 2 count feasibility studies.
I second that motion.
There's a motion. We have a motion on the floor. All approved, say aye.
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 All the same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Director Gilbert.
Mr. Chairman, last project is it's a level 1 under account 2. The spreadsheet says new development, but that would be the rehabilitation account, not the new development account. And this project is the Highland Irrigation District Master Plan. The consultant is AVI PC, and the contract amount $191,860 for a master plan. And I would recommend approval of the contract.
We have a motion to approve the level 2 account to the new development island master plan.
Mr. Chairman, I move to move the Highland Master Plan project.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Yankee. We have a motion on the floor. All four say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Thank you. Director Gephardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda is item number 10. This is the UW Water Research Program. This is a memorandum of understanding between Water Development and the Office of Water Program. This memorandum of understanding amount is for $283,454. I'll pause for a second. I believe that Mr. Greg Kerr is on the line, and I invite him the opportunity to comment here in a second. But really what this memorandum does is these are the UW research projects that we discussed throughout last year and within the omnibus water bill. The two projects that this would fund are the improved forecasting of water content, spatial distribution, and aquifer potential assessment using geotechnical and hydrogeophysical methods. Well, there's a lot of big words in that title. And then the second project that this would fund is the improving hydrologic predictions in Wyoming's headwaters through detailed quantification of snowmelt. And I will pause to see if Mr. Greg Kerr has any comments.
Yes, Director Gephardt, thank you. Hopefully everyone can hear me. I'm Greg Kerr, Director of the Office of Water Programs at the University of Wyoming. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, these two individual projects, titles may be kind of hard to talk about, except that one is a groundwater project looking at potential for groundwater recharge. The second one is a surface water, in essence, looking at snowpack and what is our runoff potential. These two projects were approved by the Select Water and by the Commission last year, went through the process through the planning bill. And I do know that the PIs are anxious to get going after the university feels like we've been cooped up for quite a while with students being online and offline, both for the last year. And so they keep calling me, asking me, when can we get going? When can we get going? We've got students ready and anxious. So that's what's presented to you today, is to fund those two projects under the Water Research Program. And thank you. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Anybody have any questions for Mr. Baker? If there's no more, or if there's not any questions for you, I'd like to say good morning, Greg. Good to see you there, partner.
Good morning. It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while. Do we have a motion on the floor to pass the University of Wyoming Water Research Program?
Also move.
You have a second?
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. All four say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Congratulations, Mr. Director. Director Gebhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Greg. Mr. Chairman, the next item on the agenda, item number 11, is the Small Water Project Program operating criteria. This is the statute change we discussed yesterday, and we feel that it's necessary to modify our operating criteria to conform with the new statute. So what we're asking for is an approval to change the small water program operating criteria to include the new language. Under tab B. Do you want me to read that language again, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, please.
So, Mr. Chairman, the proposed change is under paragraph F9 on page 5 of the small water program operating criteria. And rereading the paragraph, it says, upon project completion, WWDC funds will be dispersed when a certified bill is received from the sponsoring entity, including statement of completion, before and after photographs, project longitude and latitude coordinates, and so that this will start the stricken portion of the criteria, the affidavit of publication documenting the required notices of final settlement were published pursuant to Wyoming State Statute 16-6-116, and that stricken part is replaced with an affidavit of publication documenting final settlement as required under Wyoming Statute 16-6-116 if the sponsor determines the project meets the definition of a public work as defined in Wyoming Statute 16-6-101 IX. So, Mr. Chairman, I would recommend the operating criteria modification as presented.
We have a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to modify the operating criterion so that application only has to be made if it is a public work as defined by statute.
Do we have a second?
Second that.
Mr. Chairman, just a little discussion after the second, and it's really just a question. And if it's easy to answer, what is a public work?
So, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Cott, statute 16-6-101IX defines public work as public work includes alteration, construction, demolition, enlargement, improvement, major maintenance, reconstruction, renovation, and repair of any highway, public building, public facility, public monument, public structure, or public system. And so, Mr. Chairman, I believe that the intent of this legislation was that a lot of these small water projects are for an individual system and not necessarily for the public.
Understood. Sometimes, those definitions are way encompassing, and that's pretty clear. I mean, if you're putting in a pump or something like that, that's not a public work. Got it.
Sorry, I'm forgetting everybody else hasn't been on that same page for the last few years. So we have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Director Gebhardt.
Mr. Chairman, staying on the same agenda item, one thing that's going to occur or could occur with this statute change is we have roughly 150 current contracts. And with the statute change, that could potentially change all of our existing contracts. So I think the approach that we're going to do is allow the sponsors the opportunity that if they want to change their contract, they would be allowed to conform to the new statute. What that would mean, though, is that we could have a whole bunch of agreement amendments requested. So what I would propose to the commission today is that if we do start seeing some of those requests come in to modify these agreements, that the commission could authorize the Director of Water Development as signatory for these agreement amendments. And I would caveat that the agreement amendments that I would sign or the director would sign would only pertain to this particular case. If there were any other changes in the amendment, then that would go before the commission. But if we're only changing, then it would be much easier if I was given the authority and we don't have to convene everybody and make these changes. So if you're willing, we have prepared a motion, a proposed motion for you to consider, and I will read that. It says, I move the Water Development Commission to grant the Director of the Water Development Office the authority to enter into agreement amendments with existing sponsors related to small water projects for the purpose of having existing contracts reflect that the sponsor shall make the determination if the project meets the definition of a public work under Wyoming Statute 16-6-101IX, and if publication under Wyoming Statute 16-6-116 is required.
Do you have any questions or comments for Director Gebhardt?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make that motion.
And I'll second.
Commissioner Little made the motion and second by Lisa and Tommy Dalton. We have a motion on the floor, so all four say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passes. Director Gebhardt?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Mr. Chairman, I believe we're halfway or maybe a little more than halfway through the meeting. Did you want to have a break or do you want to keep going?
Okay. Could take a 10-minute break. We'll be back at, is it
10 o'clock.
10 o'clock? Sounds good.
Oh, no. When he said their heater quit last night and your camper got down to 47. He said you double jammy Alvin and put hats on everyone's head and we made it. We caught one fat mouse that first night and that's been it. No more activity and no more mice. Wrong. Wrong.
Well, it's a fat one.
Pregnant.
Mhm.
Yeah. Hopefully a preg mom. Exactly. Oh, so they're heading to Raton today and then home tomorrow. Dust. I have this whole. I haven't got that. What are you looking for? Honey, I told you for my medication. No, in here, where all of my medication is. Well, there's their check. But I have no idea how old they are, so you should make an explanation. Maybe not. Maybe too old. Yeah, there is. Well, let me see that box, because I'm looking out. There's only one in right. Here. So you'll have to find them in here, okay? I'm gonna go get in the shower. Here we are.
the easements, everything's ready to go. And we do verify that. They have to submit all of the documentation on January 1st with the application. And I provide a notice to proceed review of all those plans and specs and all that kind of stuff before it ever gets to the commission meeting in March. And so those projects that have the shovel-ready icon are the ones that have been, passed that test and have been classified as shovel-ready. So the reason that they might want to do that is if you have a project that is, as an example, a stream channel restoration project, which might normally be classified as a priority 5 project. If you have that project ready to go and it can be classified as shovel ready, that according to the criteria gives the commission the authority to consider that a priority at the commission's discretion. So that allows the commission to move those projects up to number 1 priority if that's their choice, so that they can then have a project turning dirt and putting a project on the ground faster because their ducks are in a row and they're ready to go. So anyway, I forgot to clarify that for the new commissioners.
Jody, I apologize. I just wanted, along the same lines, in the project notebook is the agreement template that we use. So that is pretty standard for majority of these projects. It's an example of what we would be signing with these sponsors. So we do provide the project template. And then I find this interesting, so I will share it. Jody and others in the office prepared a statewide map that identifies where all these projects are. So give me a second, I'll pull that up and then Jody can continue on, but I will show this. I think it's good information. Very good.
Absolutely, no problem. And so the next group on the list is the Medicine Bow Conservation District. They had 1 project this year requesting a $30,100 grant. And I don't know if Medicine Bow's on the line.
Anybody from Medicine Bow on the line?
No one signed up.
The next district on the list is the Niobrara Conservation Districts, and they applied for 2 projects for a total requested grant of $57,000. And I believe those guys were planning on continuing on them.
Niobrara. Yeah.
So do we have any questions for the Niobrara guys? I think they're online.
The ones from Niobrara, please introduce yourself.
I've asked her to unmute herself. She may need to hit *6 or *6 if she's on her phone.
So if you're on your phone, I guess if you hit *6, it will unmute your phone. Okay.
That's all. There's nobody that wants to talk. Okay.
So the next district on our list is the Sheridan County Conservation District. They have 5 Account 1 applications this year, and that totals $164,950. And I don't have my Sheridan County has on there.
Yeah, Carrie's here, Jody.
And so Sheridan County is online. If anybody has any questions.
Can you please introduce yourself?
Yeah, sorry, this is Carrie Rogaszewski with Sheridan County Conservation District.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, wait, Jody.
The next group in the list is the Sublette County Conservation District. They have applied for 1 project this year, requesting a $30,000 grant. And I believe Mike Hinn with Sublette County is in the room.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. Just a little background on this project. We were shooting for shovel ready. We had everything submitted except for the agreement with the landowner. This project's to save the Paradise Canal. The New Fork River is eating into, or it's just moving, the meanders moving towards the canal and has potential this spring to jeopardize. So That's why we were trying to, like Jody said, get from priority 5 up to priority 1 potentially with this. We're still working with the landowner, trying to get that letter. He's an absentee landowner, so it's been kind of a struggle with the virus issues and all of that with getting contact, but we're hoping to have that because the canal company needs to start this spring prior to high water to hopefully ensure saving that. So I will be working with Jody closely on that. So I'd entertain any questions if you have any. Do you have any questions or comments for Mike?
Mr. Chairman, just one question for Mike. Are the conversations with that landowner positive, or just haven't been able to get a hold of him because he's out of touch?
Yes, Chairman, Commissioner Cott, the landowner, they have been positive. This is a conversation that's been going on for a couple of years. I believe the landowner tends to spend time out of the country in the winter, which is added to the difficulty of getting the actual signature on a letter to get to Jody to meet the requirements of an agreement. He's in agreement with it. He's an avid fisherman and wants to stabilize that riverbank. So it's just trying to track him down and get that signature is what we're waiting on.
Thank you.
And to provide a little additional clarification to that, we only require something in writing in our file that says that the landowner is aware of the project and they're okay with it. But it's not required that there be a big legal document. But we do need to make sure that if you're turning dirt on somebody's property, that they at least know you're there and that they're aware of it and okay with it.
Mr. Chair, Jody, I have a question. You guys had mentioned something when you came up about moving up in the priority, and I wasn't aware that you could do that. So kind of explain that, how that might work.
Absolutely. When I first took this job in 2015, there wasn't a priority system in place, but there was a desire by the commission to have a priority system. But the big concern at the time was all of these are good projects, and how do you decide that a number 5 should be number 5 and a number 1 should be number 1? So when we sat down, the director at the time sat down and decided, well, as an agency, these are our agency goals, and we'll start with the highest and then we'll move down to number 5 and number 6. With the thought being that those number 5 and number 6 projects are equally valid projects. And what do we do as an agency to make sure that when funding gets tight, that they're not shut out of funding opportunities? And so it was my suggestion at the time that we put this shovel-ready idea in place. And that way, regardless of what type of project you have, if it meets the requirements of the program and you are able to get your plans and specs and permits and like I said, get your ducks in a row, you can come to us shovel-ready. And then that gives the commission the latitude to give you a number 1 priority. So if it's a good project, the commission can go ahead and fund it, regardless of where it would fall in the traditional prioritization system. Did that?
Yeah, so your project was a priority 5 and you were hoping to get shovel ready to get to priority 1.
Correct, yes. We've submitted everything minus that letter and was hoping to get that letter, but it just hasn't happened yet. But we were trying to go from knowing last year's application level, we were trying to get this one shovel ready to move up so it was viable in case funding was tight. And we just fell short the letter, but permits and every plans are all in place to move this forward as soon as we get that letter.
We appreciate your effort on that. Thank you. Mr. Chairman, I would also add to that because of the funding and the number of applications we got this year, we are able to fund all of the eligible projects. So in this instance, he is not being left out because he is not shovel ready. So we still have money on the project. Right. Appreciate that.
Anybody else have any questions or comments for Mike?
Just one more follow-up question, Mr. Chairman, and to Jody. So it sounds like there's some importance to this project moving forward. So come spring, he'll have his money.
Let me go through a little bit of the process of how what I do on the back end look like, and then that'll hopefully answer the question for you. And this information is all going to be included in our guidance document, and we're still working on that, as you're well aware. When I get an application, I review the application for its whether or not it meets the requirements of the program and whether it is in line with the definitions of the eligible projects that we fund. And then if the sponsor has requested a notice to proceed and a shovel-ready status, I set those aside. I finish all of the reviews for the regular projects, assign priorities, and put together the information in the table that you've seen here. Before any project, regardless of what their priority is, can get funding from the small water program, they have to meet they have to receive a written notice to proceed from our office. And that is explicitly spelled out in the criteria. And it says, if the project sponsor proceeds with construction without written authorization from the office, then the commission cannot reimburse you for any funds expended. So everybody on this list who is not shovel ready can receive their grant and get their project agreement signed by their board and by you guys. And then they'll begin the process of getting their designs and specifications and everything put together, and then submit that notice to proceed request to me when they are ready to have me review it. The shovel ready guys are a little bit ahead of the curve because they provide all that information with the application. And so when I'm reviewing the new applications, I then do a full notice to proceed review of all the plans and specs and easements and all that kind of stuff when I am vetting the new application. And then so I have completed that process on each one of the projects that requested shovel ready status. So I have completed that notice to proceed review for these guys, and I have got my file with my notes in the file that says this is what looks good, these are the things that are missing. So when he has the letter that he's missing, he'll submit it to me and I'll make a check mark and date it in my notes, and then I'll be able to submit the letter of notice to proceed as soon as he has a letter to me and the ink's right on the contract. So it is essentially the notice to proceed review has been done, and we can get that turned around internally pretty quickly when the rest of the pieces come together.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, just a follow-up, Jody. When that guidance document gets finished up, are we going to have like a little overview of training class or something on that so we can kind of do a little education on that?
If you are interested, then I am more than willing to provide that at a workshop or whatever Brandon and Barry decide is appropriate. Just let me know. I'll be happy to.
That sounds great. Thanks.
Okay, so public. The next one is the Teton Conservation District, and they have 2 account 1 project applications this year, totaling $70,000. And I believe that Rob Segura with the Teton Conservation District was planning on being on the Zoom call this morning. Any questions for Rob? I think he's available.
Rob, please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, Director Gebhardt, Ms. Biblica. Thank you very much for allowing the opportunity for Teton Conservation District as a sponsor to submit these SWIP applications. Again, my name Rob Scroy. I'm the Land Resources Specialist with Teton Conservation District, and happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Do you have any questions or comments for Rob? Good, Jody.
Okay. The next district in our list is the Uinta County Conservation District. They have 3 account 1 applications this year, totaling $42,025. And I did not hear from Uinta County, so I don't know if they're on the line or not.
We do have some.
Okay, and it looks like Uinta County Carrie Saby may be available if you have any questions.
Please introduce yourself.
Hi, this is Carrie Saby with the Uinta County Conservation District.
Carrie.
Carrie?
Carrie.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Carrie? Jody.
So the last account one sponsor that we are going to talk about today is the Weston County Natural Resource District. They have applied for one small water grant this year, and that grant request totals $3,650. And I didn't hear from Weston County, so I don't know if they're available to come.
Anyone from Weston County on the line? Quick, Joy.
Okay, thank you. So to summarize, if you look at the little tiny table at the bottom there, that top line available in the new development account as of 3/11/2021. So the reason why we put the date there is because that number changes almost weekly. As I get final payment requests and pay bills and close projects, that total dollar amount sort of changes depending upon what project closeout requests I've got in my inbox. But as of the 11th of March, the available amount in the small water new development account was $598,293.72. And we requested through the construction bill an additional $1 million to add to that. So that brings the new total to $1,598,293.72, with the new applications requested that we've just gone through. That brings the requested amount to $1,546,675 for a remaining balance after these appropriations of $51,618.72 for account one. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would add that money would carry over into next year's pool as well, plus any reversions or anything, and the next year's funding. So this will continue in the small water program for next year.
We'll roll over the 51,000.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
And I might add to that just one sort of side note. The estimates that the sponsors put together is, of course, just the beginning estimate of what they think the project's going to cost. It is common for projects to come back less expensive than they originally estimated. So if they save money, then we save money as well. And that then rolls over to use the next year as well.
Thank you.
Account two. Okay. So the first project sponsor for our account two request this year is Converse County Conservation District. They have one application for a requested grant of $35,000. And I believe Michelle Huntington was planning on attending on the Zoom.
Introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commission. This is Michelle Huntington with Converse County Conservation District. I'm the district manager.
Anybody have any questions or comments? What was her name again?
Michelle Huntington.
Michelle. Anybody have any questions or comments for Michelle? Thank you. Jody?
Thank you. So the next district on our account two list is the Hot Springs Conservation District, and they have one project in the rehab account with a requested grant of $35,000. And I don't know if they're online today or not. Hot Springs. Okay. Moving on down.
Mr. Chair.
Oh,
excuse me. Is there an Excel sheet on the account too? I don't seem to have that.
Yes, it's small.
It's back a ways on.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. I can tell you exactly how to get there.
I'll find it. Thank you.
And Mr. Cayley, I am sharing it. I don't know if you could read the TV, but
I can't even see the TV.
Give us a minute to look for it.
Absolutely.
It's right after, this is the last one for level one. It's for the account two starts.
Well, don't let me hold you up. Go ahead. We call each other.
Okay. Jody.
Thank you. So the next district is Laramie County Conservation District with one rehab account request, and that is a requested grant of $6,500. And we spoke with Mr. Geyer earlier, but I think he's still here if you have any additional questions.
Anybody have any questions for, was it Mike?
Jeff Geyer.
Jeff. Does he want to introduce himself or no?
Oh, he came up for the account one project today.
Okay. Just move forward, Jody.
Awesome, thank you. So the next group on our list is the Little Snake River Conservation District, and they had one rehab account project this year, and that was for $35,000. And I believe Dawn Arnell is on the Zoom call if you have any questions for her.
Please introduce yourself.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Commission. I am Dawn Arnell from the Little Snake River Conservation District. I am the Assistant Natural Resource Coordinator.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Donna now? Thank you. Jody?
Then the next group on our list is the South Bighorn Conservation District. And they had two project requests this year out of the rehab account, and that amounted to a total of $55,300. And I didn't hear from South Bighorn, so I don't know if they're online or not.
I believe they are.
If anybody from South Bighorn on, can you please introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Ashley Conan. I work for the South Bighorn Conservation District, District Manager.
Anybody have any questions for Ashley? Thank you. Jody?
Thank you. So the next group on the list is Teton County again. And they have two rehab projects this year. And those two projects total $70,000. And I think we spoke with Rob earlier, but if you have any questions, I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions for, is it Rob?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
I guess there's no questions, but thank you for attending. Jody, go ahead.
Thank you. So the last group in the list there is the Uinta County Conservation District. They had one rehab account project this year that totaled $31,250. And I think we spoke with Carrie Savy earlier, but if you have any questions, I'm sure she'd be happy to answer them.
Anybody have any questions or comments? Jody.
Excellent, thank you very much. So that brings us to the small table there below the larger one. And to summarize that for you, the available balance in the rehab account as of the 11th of this month was $329,579.89. And we requested an additional $500,000 from the construction bill this year, bringing the new account total to $829,579.89. So the new project applications amounted to 9 projects this year out of the rehab account, and that was a requested grant amount of $268,050. And so that will leave a healthy remaining budget in the rehab account of $561,529.89.
That's what rolls over.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Oops. Is that it, Jody?
Mm-hmm.
Anybody have any questions or comments for Jody? Director Gebhardt? I guess are we gonna do them all into one block? Is that how it's gonna go? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve all these small water development projects as presented.
A second,
Second.
Ron Kelly. Commissioner Ron Kelly, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you, Jody.
Mr. Chairman, let me make a comment. People in the room know from some of my past comments, I'm very strong supporter of the small water project program. But one thing I really wish we could work towards is getting a little wider geographic distribution of these projects. If we look at this year, of the level, we have 55 level 1 projects, and 34 of them are from one sponsor. And they're all excellent projects. I'm not taking anything away from them, and they did the work to get them in, and they deserve to have them. But the money to fund this is eligible to everyone around the state. And what I would encourage my fellow commissioners to do is to go back and talk to people in your area and let them know how great this program is, and also let them know that there is a change in the deadline, that we went to November 15th, correct? And there's so many. I mean, we have 34 different conservation districts in the state, and we have 10 of them represented, if I counted correctly, in the level 1, and there might be some other ones in the level 2 that weren't in level 1. So that's a fairly good distribution. I know some conservation districts are a lot more active than others, but when we look under the eligible entities, it's a lot more than just conservation districts that can apply for this. And that's a little bit different situation than in what our traditional programs are with the, they have to be a taxing entity, obviously, to repay the loan, but all this is a grant. And so I would just really, again, encourage us all to try to get the word out there on this program. It'd be wonderful when we were here a year from now to say, we've got these projects that are funded, but there's a lot more different sponsors represented. Thank you.
Thank you for a comment. I guess, thank you, Jody. Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody that attended here and online. Director Gebhardt, go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next several items, items 13, 14, and 15, are approval of construction project agreements or amendments. So what I will do is pull up a summary spreadsheet of those. Give me just one moment. And Mr. Chairman, again, if it pleases the commission, I would suggest that we go through each of these blocks and we could approve each of them as a single motion. So the first block, which is also agenda item number 13, is the level 3 projects under new development. So these would be construction projects under water development account 1. The projects this year are the Lander Well Transmission Pipeline 2021 for the city of Lander. The appropriation amount is $884,400, and that is a 67% grant for that project. The next project is the Northwest Rural Water System Improvements. The sponsor is the Northwest Rural Water District. The appropriation amount was for $1,413,700, and the term of that is a 67% grant. Next project is the Torrington Well Connection 2021 project for the city of Torrington, in the amount of $389,270, again at a 67% grant. And then the final project, this is an amendment to a current project. This was a a sponsor name change. We had discussions on that to formally change the name, and that's for the Sheridan Area Water Supply Transmission 2020 for the city of Sheridan. So my recommendation would be to approve the signing of these contracts for level 3 projects under new development account.
Do you have any caution or questions or comments for Director Gebhardt on these projects?
Mr. Chairman, I may just add too for the new commissioners. Again, these are projects that were vetted throughout all of last year pretty much. They were in the omnibus water bill that the legislature approved. So these have been well vetted, and what we're asking for now is the finalization to sign these contracts and put the money on the ground at this point.
I always forget to, because I think, you know, like I guess in Sheridan, we probably seen a lot of these from a while back when they first started. I always forget that these other guys may not be, you know, up to speed on that part.
We're drinking through a fire hose right now.
Yep. Do you want to have a motion right now for that?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Okay, we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Craig. I'm sorry I got kicked off partway through, but I need to just ask a question. My home is served by the Northwest Rural Water Pipeline. Do I need to recuse myself from this?
I guess we can pull that one portion out of it and then pull it out separately.
Mr. Chairman, I would say that a lot of times these projects have impacts on residents in the municipalities. I will leave it up to you, Commissioner Craig, but just being served by this district, I don't know that creates a conflict. If you were to be involved in the design or be party to this contract, that may be different. Darren?
Yeah, I mean, it would be left up to him, but
I don't know if you heard that, Commissioner Craig.
Can you come back up or come up here to the speaker?
Mr. Craig, I don't know if you heard that, but our Darren Cook, our AG rep, will speak.
yeah, Commissioner Craig, I mean, that would be left up to you, but I mean, as Brandon said, I can't foresee any conflict of interest there. If anyone does, though, just publicly say so and recuse themselves from the vote.
So it's up to you, Mr. Craig, if you'd like to repeat yourself.
Okay, as a matter of record, I assume this will be relatively straightforward, so I will recuse myself.
Mr. Chairman, then the motion would be to approve the Lander Well and Transmission Pipeline, the Torrington Well Connection 2021 project, and the Sheridan Area Water Supply Transmission 2020 project. And then we will pull out the Northwest Rural Water System improvements and vote on that independently so that Commissioner Craig can recuse himself.
So, Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the level 3 projects for Lander, Torrington, and Sheridan for new development.
A second?
A second.
Mr. Yankee, or Mr. Yankee, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion passes for the Lander Well, Torrington Well, and Sheridan Area Water Supply Transmission. We'll move on to the Northwest Rural Water System Improvement with
Commissioner Craig recused.
Commissioner Craig recused. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the Northwest Rural Water System improvements.
Second.
Who seconded that? Was that Larry? Larry.
Yeah, I did.
Larry Secor, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All the same sign. Motion passes for the Northwest Rural Water System Improvement 2021. Director Gephardt.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The next block of projects is the level 3 projects for rehabilitation account. The first project is the Interstate Irrigation and Reservoir Irrigation District improvements. The sponsor is the Interstate Irrigation Reservoir Irrigation District. The appropriation amount is $2,827,400, and this is a grant in the amount of 67%. Next project is the Salt Creek Transmission Pipeline 2021 project for the Salt Creek Joint Powers Board. The appropriate amount of $3,604,600, and that is a 67% grant. The next project is the Shoshone Irrigation District Improvements 2021 for the Shoshone Irrigation District. Appropriation amount $240,000. This is a materials only grant. The next project is the Sidon Irrigation District Rehabilitation 2021 for Sidon Irrigation District. Appropriation amount of $576,000. This is a material only grant as well. Mr. Chairman, I would recommend, unless somebody would like to identify conflict, that these 4 projects be approved for contract signatures.
Mr. Chairman, again, this is Commissioner Craig. My farm is served by the Shoshone Irrigation District, and therefore I will recuse myself from this.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Interstate Irrigation Reservoir Irrigation District improvements, Salt Creek Transmission Pipeline, and Sidon Irrigation District rehabilitation separately from the Shoshone Irrigation District?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Commissioner Kaylee and second by Commissioner Yankee. All 4, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Okay, do we have a motion for Shoshone Irrigation District improvements?
Mr. Chairman, so moved.
Moved by Commissioner Cott.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Lisa Dalton. Dalton. I don't know why I get that stuff up. Sorry.
And may the record show that Commissioner Craig recused.
Okay. I'll put down on record that Mr. Craig recused himself from this motion. We have a motion on the floor. All 4, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. Okay, motion passed for the Shoshone Irrigation District improvements. Thank you. Director Gephardt.
Mr. Chairman, last couple of projects, these are level 3 construction projects. These are amendments to existing contracts. It's the Ethity Water Supply Project and the Arapahoe Water Supply 2016 project. These are both for the Northern Arapahoe tribe. The Ethity is a 2-year time extension, and the Arapahoe project is a 3-year time extension. If you remember correctly, these extensions are needed to obtain easements for these ongoing projects. So I would recommend that the commission approve these 2 contract amendments.
Any questions for Director Gephardt? Okay, do we have a motion to approve the Ethity Water Supply Project and Arapahoe Water Supply?
I wouldn't.
extension.
I would move that we approve those as read amendments.
Moved by Commissioner Suker. We have a second.
Second.
Second by Commissioner Cott. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Thank you. Mr. Gebhardt.
Moving on to the next agenda item, number 16, is the Lance Creek Water and Sewer District well purchase. This would be a well purchase agreement to allow the commission to sell the well at Lance Creek. We had some discussion on this at the last several meetings. This just formalizes that agreement. This was also in the omnibus bill to get the legislative authority to do this. So what this agreement is the agreement to sell the well for the construction cost of the well itself in the amount of $33,000. So I'd recommend approval to execute that well purchase agreement.
Any questions for Commissioner Gebhardt? Director Gebhardt, sorry.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a question on this well. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I guess a couple of things. How old is this well? When was it drilled? And is that the total cost of the well as it was drilled that we're asking?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to have to reach out to somebody to help answer the dates, but the question as to the cost, this has been going on for quite a while, and at the time, I don't remember what year it was drilled, but at the time when this was originally thought and it would go to a level 3, we did break out the costs associated with the construction of the well. It was part of a larger level 2 project at that time. So just the portion of the well that is the total cost was calculated to be $33,000 for that well. Mr. Suker, if you don't mind, we may have to get back to you on the answers to when that well was drilled. I apologize.
Well, I just wanted an average of how long it was in our possession before we finally sold it, or I guess just a time frame, but that's fine. I'm okay with the continuation of a motion to approve.
Mr. Chairman, I will say that we've had this well in our possession for a number of years at this point. And it has, to this point, it has not been used. So this would put the well to beneficial use. This is good for the commission and good for Lance Creek as well.
Mr. Chairman, looking through here, this doesn't give you a solid date, but it looks like the level 2 feasibility study was authorized under the 2011 Wyoming session, looks like. So it's got to be somewhere around that time.
I would guess it was drilled in around 2013 timeframe.
Thank you.
Have any other questions or comments for Director Gebhardt? Let's call it the doctor. Sorry.
There'd be a lot of doctors offended by that.
If there's no other comments or questions, do we have a motion to approve the sale of the Lance Creek Water and Sewer District well purchase?
Mr. Chairman, I will move that we approve the purchase or the selling of that particular well at Lance Creek.
Second.
Commissioner Larry Sucre made the motion. Commissioner Lisa Salmi Dalton, second. We have a motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passed. Director Gebhardt?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on the agenda, we had a discussion yesterday about the Palisades lease agreement. What I'm asking for is authorization to sign this agreement for the lease of water out of our account in Palisades. Before I go into that, we had two questions yesterday from Commissioner Anselmi Dalton, and I'll attempt to answer those. The first question related to an indemnification that was part of the contract, and that has to do with the involvement of the water bank. This is a complex situation in this reservoir, but really what it is it could be a liability that if a water user used more water, and I'm trying to go with what I understand, so I may be partly wrong, but there could be a potential liability that if somebody uses too much water in a given year and then it's not replenished, they could be required to either pay for that shortage or to obligate some of their water for that given year to replenish that water. So this indemnification just keeps, if we sell the water to this Idaho Groundwater Group, it just indemnifies us from having to replenish that. It would be their responsibility to do that. Commissioner Dalton, does that answer your question to that effect?
Yes, it does. Thank you, Director.
Yes, and second question brought up yesterday was the contract date. The contract date is January 1 of 2021. There is also an effective clause in that the contract is not effective until we sign it. My recommendation would be to leave the date as is in the contract. And the reason for that is Idaho Groundwater Association has already signed this contract. They agreed to it. So it will be effective upon our date, but the contract was effective January 1. It's not that big of a deal because we already have a contract with the same group. This is going to replace that contract. So I think we're fine by just leaving the contract as is, or the agreement as is. So I would suggest that maybe we don't amend that and just authorize signature of it. So
what you're saying is just you're saying go ahead and approve this with the amendment.
What I'm asking is go ahead and approve as presented the agreement as presented.
Okay, and then if it's approved and signed today, that means the indemnification puts liability on the Idaho Groundwater Association.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, and that portion of the contract that was carried over from the current contract. So we've had these same requirements throughout this entire period that we've been under contract with WWDC. So they're in agreement with it. It's pretty standard to their agreements. We worked with them to develop this agreement as well. So they are in agreement and they understand the responsibilities of it.
Okay. Is there any other questions or comments for Director Gebhardt? Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the Palisades lease agreement as is.
Second.
We have a motion by Lisa and Salmi Dalton, and who's the second?
Mark Cox.
Commissioner Mark Cott. We have a motion on the floor. All four say aye.
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 All opposed, same sign. Motion passed. Let's see, I guess we'll go to the future meetings, right?
That's correct, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, the agenda item number 18 is a future meeting, which is on the very back. MC.
Last page of both the e-notebook and the hard copy. So the next meeting will be May. The actual workshop will be the 13th, and the meeting will be the 14th of May in Cheyenne. Those are joint with Select Water. I will also mention that on May 12th, which is a Wednesday, we're offering a new commissioner orientation. Speaking through drinking from a fire hose, they had to kind of wing it through this meeting. So we're offering this orientation. I don't know if everybody was able to have one of these when they became a new commissioner, but certainly anybody who would like to, we would offer this orientation. We'll have a book to share with you, explain the program, explain the meeting, what we do, and then answer any questions. And we would dedicate as much time as anybody would want to that. And we would offer to have that in Cheyenne. I think it'd be easier to do it in person, but we can certainly make arrangements for people who couldn't make it to have that virtual. And then following.
Mr. Chair. Director, what time would that meeting be?
Mr. Chairman, don't know. We can be flexible on that. I don't know how long it would take, but given that people will be traveling, if you'd let us get some thoughts on how long we think it will take, we can send out an email and get something scheduled to everybody.
I think that'd be great. There's three of us, Ron and Mark and myself, that kind of came in at a time where there was a transition between directors. I never had an orientation with you guys. They're better at learning things than I am, so I'll be slow. But I think it'd be great if some of the people that, even though we've been on the commission for a couple of years, it'd probably be something that we can pick up.
So maybe we'll remove the tag new and we'll call it commissioner orientation, whoever wants to come.
I'll be coming.
And then the following meeting be our August meeting. And that's a Wednesday through Friday. That's also our summer tour that we discussed yesterday. It sounds like we'll start planning for the Wheatland area. We'll visit some of those projects and we can start that planning.
Possibly the tunnel.
Yes, that's correct. Possibly the GVID tunnel.
I'd
So
like
those,
to see that.
I'm sorry.
I said, I'd like to see that.
Certainly. We'll work with Goshen Irrigation District. They may have water running at that time, but we can see what's available. So those would be the next two meetings, and then of course the October would be our consult selection. That's a long one, that Tuesday through Thursday, and then a meeting on Friday. And then the November meeting, that's where we're gonna develop the construction and planning bills. That's the future meeting schedule.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments? Okay, discussion.
Mr. Chairman, the only item I had is if Mr. Chairman and Mr. Secretary would like to stick around, we have a lovely pile that's just waiting for somebody to color on it. So.
Yep. Here, I'll be here.
Mr. Chair, I just have one last comment. I wanted to thank Commissioner Purcell for all the hard work and mentoring that he did for several of us on this board. And just wanted to tell him, if he's listening out there, thank you for everything you've done for the Wyoming Water Development Office and all the years of service. We appreciate that.
Agreed, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, thank you, Mike Purcell. I'd like to thank all of the people that work in the Wyoming Water Development Office. I know that they had to pick up a lot of slack from the other members that are either retired or moved on, or with the hiring restriction. I know that's probably put a lot of stress on everybody in this office, but they keep going and everything seems to be in motion. So I'd like to thank everyone.
Mr. Chairman, I would echo that. The entire staff has really picked up a heavy lift. A lot of extra work involved, and I really appreciate everybody's effort. It's been seamless in appearance, but that's because of a lot of additional hard work by the staff. So thank you.
And I'd like to say thank you to all of the new commissioners. There was, I gotta get my list because I can't remember too good. Bob Choma and Lee Craig and Lisa and Salmi Dalton. I'd like to thank you and welcome you all to the commission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there any other discussion? Thank y'all for coming, and I appreciate everyone's time. I know that, you know, being on the commission is, you know, you're not making any money really. You're putting a lot of your time out there to make our state in a better in many different ways, you know, because the water does affect not the agricultural, but the whole economy and the people and everything. So I'd like to thank y'all. Director Gebhardt?
No, I agree. Thank you. Look forward to working with all the current and the new commissioners. Looks like a great group of people, and I'm happy to be part of it and look forward to working with all of you.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we adjourn.
Second.
Motion on the floor. All four, say aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passed. We're adjourned. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.